Walt, the Waymo news keeps coming. This time, they announced they're going to DC for commercial service. The Tesla fanatics, they're all hyped up. They had a lot of sugar as they approach this great unlock that's coming in June. And then the big question for you, who would win a March Madness game? The Waymo Redditors or the Tesla YouTubers?
You just revealed yourself as a parent of a young child. Unlike myself, who is now an empty nester when you're referring to sugar getting someone hyped up. But to answer your question on who's winning that game, I'm going with the Waymo Redditors just because the quality of information and the steady flow of fact-based information seems to outweigh what I see posted, YouTube clips and whatever stuff that's posted on X. So I'm going with Waymo Redditors with a 13-point spread over the Tesla YouTubers. Now, this has nothing to do with who I think wins the race to autonomy, but in a basketball game, that's what I'm going with.
Quality content. See, you can put the Waymo Redditors on the hardcore, and if you put the Tesla YouTubers on the street ball. So it depends on the different environments that you're going to play because they have different tactics. But this week, we took Autonomy Markets on the road. We went down to Fort Worth. We got a lot of inbound and people want to know where we went, so we'll reveal where we went. We went to the Fort Worth conference, hosted by Ian Kinney and Mr. Perot and Mike Berry of Hillwood. Great event. This is my third year going, moderated a fantastic panel about the economics of autonomous trucking. It was your first year joining us in Fort Worth. What did you think?
I feel like I was brought into the inner circle. I mean, it was a great event. It had all the key stakeholders that you would want in the concept of moving a product from point A to point B, end to end. Unfortunately, Grayson, we did not get to, because it was so busy, to do a barbecue taste. But we were out one of the nights with a great group. I was shocked in the home of the Dallas Cowboys to see cheesesteak on the menu. And then furthermore, for you to actually partake in in this case, Fort Worth cheesesteak. How was that?
Not very good, to be honest. Not very good. It didn't have the brotherly love.
Stick to your local cuisine. I had venison. I had some venison at lunch. That was delicious. Best venison I've ever had. I don't know what type of spicing they use. Are the deer in Dallas just better than the rodents that are the deer here in New York that are, to bring it back to autonomy, such a risk to drivers in New York as they dance out on the road? Why is the difference there?
In Texas, they have room to roam. In New York, they don't have very much room because it's being overdeveloped.
That's a good point. Although more roaming, I would think makes it tougher. It was delicious. But again, thanks again. I had a great time there. Met a lot of great people. We'll get into some of the stuff that we learned, during the podcast. The one thing I was a bit disappointed about is I don't think anyone really had a good idea for how we're going to fix the rising cost of insurance. I think on one of the panels, there was even talk about, look, we've increased safety in a variety of ways, but the overall cost of insurance continue to rise because of some of these nuclear verdicts. And given the money flow that occurs through these lawyers that, as you love to point out, are on billboards everywhere. I think you talk about one city, but they're every city. I mean, everyone says, oh, in our city, like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. What is the solution here, Grayson?
The solution, I've said this for a long time, and there's precedence for this. You ban lawyer advertising in the media. That includes print magazines, for those who still read it. I do. Includes digital advertising and billboards. We have precedent. It happened with tobacco. It was banned. It was bad for society. Well, lawyers that chase Waymo vehicles are bad for society. RFK now, Jr., is now proposing banning medical ads on TV for the drug companies. Okay? So there's another precedent if that goes through. Ban legal advertising, get some sort of tort reform through and solve this because these lawyers are preying off of companies with deep pockets that are just driving up the cost for everybody. If you want to talk about tax reform, one of the greatest ways to do tax reform is stop the trial lawyers from profiteering off of the hardworking Americans in this country. That's how you stop it.
You're right, Grayson. It is basically a tax, and it's obviously across the board on multiple things: health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. And I think part of the reason why there's been a movement at Uber, particularly, and perhaps also Lyft, to develop fleets. And because when you have employees driving these cars and then ultimately enabling a fragmented autonomous market, you can start to self-insure and reduce those overall insurance costs. But these nuclear verdicts are just not really good for our country.
Not good. They're horrible for our country. Frankly, they should be illegal. Just if you want to go there, because if you look at the harm.
Well, you can't have an illegal, hold on, you can't have an illegal verdict. What you can do is cap the verdicts, right? And you can't just have unlimited verdict. There's things you can do in terms of how the courts, but you can't, it's like you can make you have to allow people, we are a nation of laws, right? You have to allow people to sue. I think it's just a matter of capping some of the verdicts.
Oh, it depends if you have rogue judges and lower courts that are driven by political ideology.
But if you cap their judgments that can be appealed, then that effectively takes care of that. But you can't outlaw lawsuits, right, on certain topics. There are things that people should get sued for.
Yes, but you're right with caps. You need reforms. Let's be honest. We are a sue happy culture, and that leads to all sorts of issues. The nuclear verdicts are hurting the trucking industry, and if you look at going to autonomy, the trucks are going to be safer. Yeah, here comes the inbounds and the bow and arrows, the shotguns, whatever you want to throw my way, are going to come. But the point blank, autonomous trucks are safer than human-driven trucks. We have data. We're going to continue to see that data grow. And yes, there are incredible million milers, 2 million milers, 3 million milers, 5 million milers. There's great drivers. Craig Harper, the former COO and CSO of JB Hunt, was a Mr. Pro driver. And yes, Mr. Harper, I understand that there are great men and women driver, but you and I both know we do need autonomous trucks. They will make our roads safer. And at Fort Worth, there was a lot of buzz around the autonomous trucking industry maturing, becoming a investable business. A lot of investors there at the conference were talking about it. And there's a lot of excitement for Aurora's upcoming drive route that's going to occur in April. When Aurora goes drive route, Dallas to Houston, no driver in the cabin. And here's the caveat. Nat Buse talked about this on the Road to Autonomy podcast. No remote driver, no hidden steering wheel in the background. How do the markets react when they accomplish that historic feat?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was a little surprised at the level of focus and attention that Aurora got this week. Clearly kind of first, not even first, right? I mean, Kodiak has trucks on the road. There's been other trucks on the road. Kodiak's in the basin, but there's definitely a lot of attention being paid to Aurora. And I would just say, to that industry, I would dial it back a little bit. I mean, you're just talking about one truck right now. You're just talking about daytime driving. There's other milestones that Aurora will hit along the way, and that other companies then will step in with their own milestones. So, the success of this industry within autonomy trucking does not hinge on exactly what Aurora is doing. And I think they're almost building themselves up for a bit of a letdown in that if it's just one truck and everyone's like, okay, what's next? And then the next milestone is like not right around the corner, then, it becomes potentially an issue. I think all of these companies, are making great progress. It's certainly going to be an important milestone. We're certainly rooting for Aurora. The entire industry should be. I mean, there's like this kind of tension that exists. Everyone's friends. They all want each other to succeed at the same time. You're obviously competing with this fellow company in Aurora. I think they will be successful. It's going to continue to help a lot of the capital raises that are going on right now across many of these companies to try and get investors' mindset. I will say this, like one of the conversations I had, the person was trying to argue with me, not argue, but point out like, oh, what's the big deal with the Robotaxi market? Why do you guys talk about the Robotaxi market? Like, look how big this opportunity is in trucking. For sure, that is the case, right? But look, B2B for investor world has never been as sexy. Like, people prefer like consumer facing type products. You can get your brain around the scale of billions of humans wanting to move around. That's our job, you and I, Grayson, to continue to educate people about the economic transformation that can occur if the trucking industry goes driver out and becomes autonomous. And to your point, you're referencing labor that maybe attacks you offline or online about the impact to labor of autonomy. I mean, it's tough getting drivers out there, right? This helps the economy. This probably helps their base to a certain extent in terms of opening up new opportunities in this country, right? That might not exist necessarily, were it not for what some of these trucks can do and doing some of these routes that are not, people don't want to be on the road. And in the case that we talked about a lot about in Fort Worth, not just about the trucks that are on the road, but what's happening behind the fences, who's operating the cranes, robots, huge part of the discussion this week as well, and the role that they're going to play. It's all part and parcel to getting our U.S. economy to grow faster. And I think as that starts to happen, clearly money flows to it, investor interest flows to it, and just the results will speak for themselves. I wouldn't get too hung up on, for some of our listeners, and again, we should spend more time on this about the debate between whether it's Aurora or another company, whether it's Robotaxis versus trucking, autonomous trucking. It's all important to move our economy forward.
It's very important, and autonomous trucking is going to make our roads safer. Autonomous trucking is going to lower inflation, and it's very important. We're the only podcast out there in autonomy that's covering autonomous trucking on a regular basis. I've had a lot of great mentors in the trucking industry who have spent the years teaching me about it, and now I'm very grateful to take you into that community. And I want to highlight to the listeners, it's not just Aurora. You have Kodiak operating drive route in the Permian Basin. Bot Auto, based in Houston, is getting ready to go drive route this year. Waabi's working on their AI first software. Plus is getting ready for commercial operations in 2027 with Traton launching out of San Antonio. And then Torc is preparing, as we heard on the panel with Peter von Schmidt, to launch commercial operation 2027. So it's a very healthy ecosystem. And it's all in Texas. So when we were in Texas after the panel, I grabbed my bag, hop, skipped, and jumped. I went in an Uber off to the airport, and unfortunately when I to the airport, I didn't get to see the scene, Walt. I was very disappointed. You sent me a video at I don't know what hour in the morning. Somebody was naked throwing water around. I don't know why. Maybe she thought it was a Tesla protest. I don't know. So I didn't see that, but I made my flight. I got out of there, unlike the other individuals that were stuck. But you went and saw May Mobility in Arlington. What did you see? I love it. You're rolling up your sleeves. You're doing the dirty work for us. What did you see?
It was great to get there. In order to use the service, you had to download the Via app. It's specific locations. So when I first did it, I didn't put in the right location. So I got on the phone with the Via driver. It was going to be like a 30-minute wait. That wasn't going to work. So Via as an app wasn't good for the human drivers. When I finally figured out if I had to put in the location, which by the way, I started seeing these May Mobility cars all over the place. It turns out there's probably like 5 or 6 of them. So it's going to be similar to, I think, what they're planning with Lyft in Atlanta. Lyft is probably going to have a much better app experience than what I experienced with this. I think it's a version of the Via app or maybe powered by Via. But the students get this for free. So they use it heavily on this campus that was in Arlington. There's shared rides. I know you're not a huge fan of that. But pretty much every ride that I got into, there was another student there, doing a shared ride. But look, at the end of the day, they're on the road with product. There was a safety driver there. The ride itself felt comfortable. So it gives me a very clear vision about what we're going to see in Atlanta in the upcoming months. Which again, we saw more press this week, talking about Lyft and May Mobility in Atlanta. If you want more details, contact Grayson or I, and we can fill you in more about our May Mobility experience, whether it's in Arlington or wherever.
The bottom line is, well, for the past couple of weeks, we've been on the road. And being on the road together is a ton of fun. Where should we head off to next? Should we go to a factory tour? Should we go ride in some Waymos? Where should we head off to next?
We met a lot of different stakeholders, OEMs that have manufacturing facilities, in various parts of the country. And obviously there's a push to bring more manufacturing into the U.S. or even Mexico. Mexico's got their own trade deficit with China, so there's a ton of locations there. I mean, I should have thought about this before, but Arkansas, major key players that's going to enable all this stuff. You have to have people that are going to be doing, using the products that the industry is making for that. We definitely have to come back to Dallas, Fort Worth area, spend more time at Alliance. Great test bed of technology there. Obviously, Aurora is going to be live. Bot Auto is going to have some progress. You're going to have Kodiak which you can spend time with. I think in this market. Who else am I missing? We can head to Austin. Make a full Dallas trip. Head over to Austin. Check out those Robotaxis as well. So Dallas, obviously, Texas. Let's call it a key state. Texas, Grayson, open for business. It seems to me like they're stealing the Florida tagline. Where is Florida in all of this? When I think about all these places that we're going, Florida's not one of those places. What happened?
You have to give respect where respect is due, and Texas deserves respect for what they're doing with autonomy. Texas is the capital of autonomous trucking. Florida's not a trucking market. We're a robotaxi market. Obviously, Waymo next year is going into Miami. Going back in autonomy a decade, everybody was waiting for the great Mickey Mouse unlock. I remember Oliver Cameron and Voyage were exploring it. Cruise was exploring it. But Texas is clearly the heart of the autonomy market, and they deserve to respect and doing a really great job in it. And they have the population growth. We have population growth, but they have bigger population growth. And they have the land and the need for it. So you have to give respect where respect is due. When we're on the road, Robert Brown, sir, I know you listen from Bot Auto. Let Walt and I in the truck. Let's record a podcast as we're going down the road. That would be fun in an autonomous truck. We'd be the first podcast to do that. And then, Walt, we can head up to Austin and drive around in a Waymo and see if we can even get one on the Uber app and record.
By the way, one I forgot is also Daimler, right? And I think, while the timeline may be a couple of years before they're, fully at production, I think there's going to be something to see out of Daimler and, their acquisition of Torc later this year as well. So one more reason to get into Texas.
Suma and Joanna, Walt and I will come out to Portland factory tour. Just putting it out there. One of your competitors offered.
Whoa. I'm going to stop short at Portland. I think do we need to go see the factory in Portland? Maybe they can move. Maybe we can just see some of the trucks that they might be doing, in Texas. Let's stick to Texas, shall we, Grayson? That's only because it's a very long flight. That's the only reason I would say that, Grayson.
Joanna, Suman, how about this? You meet Walt and I. Richie, please come too, sir. Meet us in Texas. Let's go through and let's see the operations. There's no doubt about Texas and the way that it's growing, but it's not just limited to Texas. Waymo this week announced they're going to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., home to the White House and Congress. They're going to operate commercial service in 2026. Caveat, you can't legally operate a driver-out commercial service in D.C., but to me, this Waymo announcement was a strategic maneuver as Waymo in the industry works towards a national framework, because Waymo, when they start operating that commercial service, staffers, elected officials, all the NGOs, they're still around getting this thing. They get addicted to Waymo. We're going to get a national framework. Really strategic move. What do you think of the political savviness of Waymo's DC announcement?
Obviously, all those reasons you just stated are super important. Also, by the way, New York, capital of the world, financial capital and otherwise. New York is an important market. It's definitely a lot more challenging to figure out how to do New York than it is DC, given the traffic, depending on, again, whether Secretary Duffy is insisting on having our congestion pricing. Secretary Duffy, if we have congestion pricing, there's going to be more room on the roads for autonomous cars. Consider that in the grand scheme of things. But I digress. DC, all those reasons you said, really a great reason to be in the market. You've got differentials in terms of weather, although I will say you get a little bit of rain in Washington, D.C., the entire city shuts down. That should be a no-brainer for these Waymo cars to be able to drive it. I think they'd slow down probably 4 or 5 miles an hour in D.C. when they get a little bit of rain there. So, yeah, it's a good market for them.
And there's a little bit of snow there, too, that comes. It gets cold in D.C.
I don't know about the snow, Grayson. I think that stuff melts pretty quickly in the rare times it happens.
It does, but it's still cold there. It's staying on the political front and the savviness of Waymo's leadership team. Waymo's going to call the bluff of the Teamsters. The Teamsters sit there, autonomy's not safe, autonomy's not safe. They're up and down, use the Tom Jensen line, they're using shoe leather on the hill. Well, what do you mean, sir, it's not safe? I was just in there last week, and I was in there today, and I was in there this, and I took my kids to school. They're going to stop the Teamsters argument dead in its tracks because they're going to get used to this. That's the brilliance of that. With that being said, what kind of political lobbying effort do you think the Teamsters are going to put to try and stop this?
Facts don't always matter when it comes to perception and impacting, voter perception, whether it's for your own member base or politicians or the general public. So I think that's going to be we all know the insurance backs it up, and that people are willing to put dollars behind, it being safer in terms of what you're going to underwrite that from an insurance perspective. Numbers don't lie. It's still going to be a perception issue, right? That you're going to have. So the industry, I think, needs to do a better job at banding together, just like we saw in the trucking industry, where these are, competitors, yet they get the overall benefit for the entire industry. That's why a group of great people can get together in Fort Worth to discuss these issues. The robotaxi industry has to consider the same thing. I know probably Waymo and Tesla both look down their nose at the competition. They shouldn't. Those competitors are real, and they are still developing their products, and the industry in general has to focus on the marketing of their product autonomy as something that's safe. Wireless industry, as the CTIA, former FCC chairman of GPI, is now the head of the CTIA. I think there needs to be, organizations that are maybe more than one that continue to get funded to kind of push this, because it's an essential element for autonomy to continue to grow.
There's the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Alliance. Then I founded the Council for Economic Resilience to talk about the positive economic benefits that autonomy is going to have for the economy. Outside of the political savviness of Waymo, outside of having to change the laws, another key element stood out to me. Waymo's going to operate the service as Waymo One. No Uber partnership. They're getting left in Atlanta and Austin. Am I reading the tea leaves here, or is this? What do you make of that?
Every new market is definitely going to be interesting to watch in terms of whether Waymo adds Uber. We're still waiting for them to add Lyft. So that's probably the bigger issue. We know Lyft is trying to work on something with Waymo. So if they just did a Waymo One market, let's stop looking at Uber and start looking at Lyft. Why was that not a Lyft market? Waymo already has two markets planned, right, in terms of Uber only, where you can go get a Waymo. They have Phoenix, which is a hybrid market. So you've got enough test markets with Waymo. Maybe we don't see for the next 2 years another Uber Waymo market, because Waymo has enough situations where they can evaluate it. They don't have enough cars as it is. So why continue to add another test case of Uber unless they've made that decision? And sorry, to the Uber fans out there, clearly that decision hasn't been made. So they're going to have to perform better, in those markets. So, I think those are the questions. For you, Grayson, in Phoenix, they have a hybrid approach. And there's been some data that I've seen, unreliable, but whatever, that suggests that the mix of rides is going to the Waymo One app as opposed to getting your Waymo through the Uber app. Why do you think that is occurring?
Product consistency. Point blank. Individuals want a consistent experience. We saw data around South by Southwest with all the complaints on the Uber app not getting paired. And I said last week that chatter has started to die down. But this week on Reddit, it's starting to bubble up again. Yes, it's a very small group, but it's a loyal group that's using the product, and they do not like the Uber experience. We've known, unconfirmed, but we believe and we suspect from multiple sources that there are Waymo representatives and employees on that subreddit that are actively monitoring it. Perhaps they're taking some of that feedback in there, because you download the Waymo One app, it's a consistent experience. And let's look at this from a political savvy standpoint. Waymo launches, hypothetically, we know they're not doing it, launches on Uber in DC. I'm an elected official, or I'm a staffer. I open the Uber, I get paired with an Uber. Oh, this is bad. What's this? This is bad. Oh, I don't want this. I don't get a Waymo. Imagine the headache that would have come. Oh, download Waymo. Oh, okay. It was a brilliant strategic move, because it all goes back to product consistency. I've said this many times. I'm going to say this again. I'm sorry to the Uber fans. Bill Ackman, I'm sorry. You're wrong. Uber needs Waymo. Waymo does not need Uber. That's the bottom line.
I'm not at that conclusion quite yet. There's still work to be done in terms of the volumes of cars that they need. And another thing I would point out in terms of Phoenix is they on that app have a separate tier for the Waymo car, where in Austin they don't. The difference might be that I believe in Phoenix, you probably got 600 cars there. And in Austin, I think our guess is 30, 40 cars. Maybe that's a little bit larger. So maybe it's just an issue of the supply of the cars and that's not what they're doing. Or maybe they're just trying a different mode out in Uber's case and how they're doing. I don't even know. It's like, is Uber getting restricted by Waymo and how they do the app? So it could be tests that are out there. Grayson, if they don't need them, like they wouldn't even bother doing this test. So I think there's still an opportunity here. You never know how management changes. We don't even know if Waymo, which has designed a lot of the technology, is going to outsource their technology to OEMs to enable private ownership. There's a lot of things that can happen that can shift these power dynamics. And by the way, for our longtime listeners, if you went back to episode 1, I think you and I have now flip-flop on this on this topic. I don't think I'm entirely in the Uber camp. I just think there is an opportunity for them, particularly with fragmentation along the stack, where they can maintain, their value in the overall chain.
We have flip-flopped. Uber needs fragmentation. There's no doubt about it. If the market doesn't fragment and Uber does not continue to seed the market, then I'll use the child's term, they're in deep doo-doo. And if you look at the market today, Waymo's running away with the Robotaxi market. They're the clear leader. They're getting very close to the highway unlock. Zoox, we have no indications around a highway unlock because highways connect airports. And we talk a lot about airports because if we look at the economic impact they'll have, but then also look at it from a revenue standpoint, in Atlanta, Waymo, we have video footage that Waymo's been testing on I-85 in Atlanta. Why is I-85 important? Well, I-85 is what connects Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport to downtown to Buckhead. You start connecting the Atlanta airport to downtown to Buckhead, that's a huge economic revenue unlock for Waymo. It's getting closer.
It's almost going to be anticlimactic since we've talked about this so much. Highways are coming, right? It's right around the corner. So I think it's probably not as big of a moment in the financial markets. I could be wrong, just because there's so much evidence that's out there. Maybe we're just too in the weeds now talking about this on the weekly basis. But you're 100% right that it's just demonstrating that they're making that progress on the highways, which I think a lot of people didn't think that they had that. I just want to go back to one thing you said, though. Sorry to be argumentative, but Waymo is the leader. Tesla is not in the market yet, right? So neither of these companies, in my opinion, you can say are running away with it. Like a Waymo car still costs whatever, $150,000, $175,000. Can they get to a car that's $50,000? Sure. Car and electronics, $50,000. Can they get there? Yeah. I don't know what year it is. But my point is that there's still time for the other technology companies that are out there to develop something, partner with OEMs, and get whether it's an OEM or a financial partner backing them to drive it. It could be that Waymo and Tesla are at the bleeding edge, get the market acceptance that paves the way and makes it easier for some of these other technology companies to kind of emerge with their products.
But Waymo's becoming a habit, becoming a verb. It's becoming a habit. Consumers are getting used to it. So how are you going to break away from that?
I mean, you could grab a Kleenex, but there's other companies that sell tissues. Sure. I mean, initial players in a market that have very strong positions become the verb, but there's certainly there's going to be other options in the market. And it's not always the first to market that is the ending winner to market. And let's just look at the mobile phone market. And I can tell you about a company called Nokia and Motorola. And where are they today?
Belly up.
Well, they're not belly up per se. They got sold. The phone divisions got sold off. But yes. But the point is, this is a great country. AI is a great opportunity for development to happen. There are companies that are fully embracing this, actually in London as well. So, and not to take nothing away from Google, but I will take something away from Google because it is a large company and things do not necessarily happen there at the fastest speed. deals that they try and get done, technology they develop. There's an opportunity for a lean, mean group of technologists leveraging AI, to take advantage of the path that Waymo has set in front of us and then really benefit from it.
I'll say for the record, Walt, Waymo will not be the Nokia N90 and Waymo will not be the Nokia Navigator, nor will it be the Motorola Razr. Waymo is the iPhone. End of discussion.
You like to flex you like to go into telco corner and flex your knowledge of the old specific models. I love it.
Yes, I'm a telco geek at heart, and maybe that's why I like you and I love these conversations, because when I used to listen to the Lightshed podcast, which I still do, and in the old days you had telco corner and everybody would fall asleep and you would give these great telco things, and I was able to relate to them, and I love it. So I'll have to insert a little bit here and a little bit there. On the London theme, London's a great international market. Yes, there's a lot of economic issues, political issues in London now. Wave is developing the technology there. In the Sunday Times, in an interview, Andrew McDonald, the SVP of Mobility and Business Operations at Uber, talked about great length for bringing autonomous vehicles to London. Is that going to be a Wave market, or perhaps could that be I'm going to say it, a Waymo Uber market?
I mean, London's a great city, and when you talk about all these different companies talking about it potentially being there, it kind of feels like Austin and some of these other places, maybe even Atlanta, where companies almost want to show off against each other in a bake-off in individual markets. It's kind of weird because, like, in our world, in telco world, like, let's say you're going to overbuild fiber. It doesn't always make sense to overbuild fiber where someone else has already overbuilt fiber. Although, to be clear, that's actually happening. Third cable entering the market because there's returns available. But here, it's almost like they want to show each other up in a market. I don't know. I think maybe the better idea would be the whole industry needs to move forward, and rather than everyone pile into London, pick a different city. Can I put my kind of advertisement hat on for New York? I know New York's hard. We might not have the most welcoming government and in the moment, but like if you conquer New York, that's going to be a pretty big calling card. So stop with these other cities and come to New York. We need autonomy here.
I agree with that under one condition. You must connect Midtown to the Bronx to Yankee Stadium. Must do it. And then to our Mets fans, you bastards, Cohen stole Soto from us.
Whoa.
It's an overpriced contract, so good luck with that. You took Soto from us.
A Yankee fan talking about an overpriced contract is the funniest thing I think I've ever heard. And just like I said, the industry is important, and it's great how the trucking people come together. As a baseball fan, you should be more than excited about how Steve Cohen is going to transform this industry known as baseball and bring interest and perhaps wins back to it.
Soto will end up being Danny Tartable. Said that long term, but very, very thankful. Mr. Cohen's an owner of the Mets. He's investing in it. He's doing really great things. I only wish George Steinbrenner was still alive. Seeing George Steinbrenner and Steve Cohen go at a spending spree would be epic. With that said, to our Mets fans, you got to connect Flushing, then you got to go to Kennedy, and you got to go to LaGuardia. Now you've got a great service in New York. I said it. It's there. It needs to happen. Well, I've been thinking about this. Well, we're getting all these new Waymo markets that are popping up around the country, soon around the world, with Tokyo eventually coming online after this road trip. What do you think about every time Waymo opens a new market, we go there, we record an episode of Autonomy Markets, riding around the Waymo in that city, commentating on it. How about we call it Autonomy Markets Confessions, and we can model it after Taxi Cab Confessions, the hit HBO show?
I'm not even sure where I'm going to go with that one, Grayson. I wish I could say that I'm unfamiliar with that show, but yes, that was, some of HBO's earlier moments.
It was up there with Tales of the Crypt. It propelled
yeah, right.
It propelled HBO into the nomenclature. We're not going to have Autonomy Markets Confessions, but we will have Autonomy Markets Banter. We'll have really good commentary in there. We'll test out different ideas. You come up with cool ideas and names. We'll test it. Speaking of testing, Waymo's testing scheduled rides now. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a regular user of testing rides on these early flights that I have to get. And why? Because the volume of cars available well, first of all, I don't want to have to wake up and hit hit the Uber thing. So it's a beauty sleep issue. But the volume of drivers make it such that, I know it's happening in the background. So it makes even more sense for Waymo to add this. And I think this is just a matter of Waymo building additional features, into their app. We talked earlier about why Waymo might be taking more share in Phoenix from the people that are getting Waymo through the Uber app. Well, part of it might be they're doing like frequent flyer mile type things, right? If you're a Waymo user, you get discounts for using it much more. Maybe the app itself is getting better in terms of the predictability of things. Like getting back to this, whatever this app was that I was using for main mobility, just the algo was not great. It was showing lines where the driver was supposedly going to go around, but they didn't go around. So that predictive stuff that you and I, or maybe more so me, has said, oh, it just happens. And Uber has been telling us, no, it doesn't just happen. Like it takes a while to develop a good app that's going to match the supply with the demand. So maybe it's just that Waymo is making those advancements and just got to this and checked this off the box. And then they moved to the next one and just building up a feature set, on there. The other thing to consider with scheduled rides for Waymo is these are high value rides. If you're doing a scheduled ride, by definition, they cost more money and they're probably to an airport or somewhere where you need to get to, which is a higher, overall ticket item. So, obviously an important thing to add for Waymo.
I don't like scheduled rides. I was in North Carolina, Raleigh. I ordered a scheduled ride. I think it was 4:30 or 3:30 in the morning to go to the airport. And so I had to pay it. And then I got up the next morning. So what if I just order it now? It was half price. I had to pay double to schedule the ride, and the ride would have been available to me. So where does that price dynamic come in? Because I'm not going to do a scheduled ride. I'll wait, okay, and I'll order. And I'll take that chance because how much money it saves. What is that pricing dynamic where Walt Beauty Sleep comes in versus me wanting a fair price?
There's people that get to the airport 2 hours before, and there's people that get there 45 minutes before their flight.
Or 15 minutes like me.
So it just depends on what you want. And maybe in North Carolina, the supply was great there. I don't think I still wouldn't risk it today with Uber. I mean, I live not far from New York, and I get assigned the same guy, June, and he's taking me like the last 3 times. I basically know where he lives right now because by the time I wake up, I see where his car is starting from. It's the same location. Again, I'm getting this is like 4:00 in the morning type ride, so it's peace of mind that people have, and if people are willing to pay. Maybe it's not 2x, Grayson. That's probably anecdotal exaggeration. But if people are willing to pay a premium and they're getting higher margin, and the driver's getting paid more, then sure, this is something they should do. I want to shift topics on you if you don't mind. One of the things on Phoenix that when I was looking at why this, getting back to this topic from earlier, why was this shift happening? I'm like, well, maybe there's a pricing or consistency issue, and like, where is the tier that Uber is pricing at? And according to the internet, or excuse me, not the internet, according to the LLMs, in Phoenix, they're basically charging at parity to UberX rates. Why do you think Waymo is charging at parity in Phoenix to UberX as opposed to a premium? Or is this just a choice that Uber is making, in terms of seeing how it works in their app? Who's got control of that, where it fits in the pricing in the Uber app, do you think?
We don't have access to the contractual agreements. I am going to go on a limb with no intelligence on this and say that it's Waymo that is setting the price. To me, Waymo is looking to gain market share and build acceptance. That's what that says. And then Uber's saying, well, for X, we can offer you a premium service at an X price, and it wins for them. But I believe it's Waymo really trying to gain that public acceptance, that public trust that's doing it.
So I hear you on that, but the demand is there. I think that is the wrong strategy, and I think you want to be perceived as the quality brand out there, and quality is oftentimes tied to what you are charging for the product. So I think you don't want to be established as an UberX level. So I don't think that was a great thing. And again, Waymo is largely supply constrained. Their issue is not demand, it's supply. So maybe it was a negotiated thing initially, and Uber was the one driving pricing that at the UberX levels. Again, interesting to see what's going to happen in Phoenix and Atlanta in terms of how they price it and where they put it in the app.
Do you think that could change in 2026 when the Hyundai start coming online and that supply constraint starts to ease?
Every week, I'm wondering when Waymo is going to announce a new car manufacturer. But in the same token, we've talked about Hyundai as kind of the arms dealer and some of the other deals that they've done. I'm just as curious if our friends at Hyundai have been asked to accelerate the timeline at Waymo. Again, getting back to my earlier comments, like anecdotally, Waymo does not feel like a fast driving company and pushing things forward. They're kind of steady as you go. Maybe it's because they're have so much funding and have such a large backer that there's not that kind of pressure that a true startup has in trying to get to the next step. I'd definitely be interested. And again, there was stuff on Reddit where there was a Hyundai Waymo car seemingly on the back of a delivery truck. It would be great if Waymo could accelerate that. And yeah, I think that's going to change a lot of things in terms. But again, I think as they add supply, the demand will be there for it. That's just my belief. The rides work.
The rides work. Waymo's potential new emerging biggest competitor is Tesla. And they are not going to be supply constrained because they obviously manufacture vehicles. And we got a tweet, or I'll say a post from Tesla this week on X. And I'm gonna read this here. The post stated, "The future is autonomous." That's my line.
Oh, stop. The future is autonomous. They're stealing your line again?
They are.
You should have trademarked that. You should have trademarked that a while ago.
I got to call my lawyers. There is a trademark or part of that. So yes.
All right, go back. Sorry to interrupt your tweet. Go ahead.
That's okay. The future is autonomous. So I appreciate you giving the Road to Autonomy love there. It says, "The future is autonomous and it starts in Austin this June. Thanks to Austin City and Texas DOT for hosting and supporting our efforts to unlock safe and low cost," here it is, Walt, "premium point-to-point electric transport. All signs point to June. Go." I'm unsure. I'm coming back from the airport last night after our wonderful trip to drop my dear friend Chad off at his house. And we go this road. The car, the Tesla on FSD, did not see the speed bump. Chad goes, "What are we in, a cartoon?" And he thought I was going to launch. It didn't see the speed bump. It's not ready. It's not ready. But yeah, they're saying June.
That is very funny. I mean, I've had my issues as well at 12.6. I don't have the latest hardware. That's fine. I think what June probably means is you're going to have a safety driver in there. In terms of service area, probably like a May Mobility type of thing that we've seen in Arlington, Ann Arbor, and what we will see in Atlanta. So not the type of size that maybe Waymo has. I don't know what your updated thoughts on those two items. I mean, I think June feels like it's locked in. I mean, it's not just Elon out there making a promise. There are people throughout that ecosystem, let's call it, of Tesla people, and it's pretty close. So I'd be surprised now if we see nothing in June. But, driver in, May Mobility type of service area in terms of size. First of all, what are your thoughts on that? On those two items?
I'm going to put on my Roman Legion body armor when I make this comment.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm prepared for the inbound. Driver in, FSD supervised, the new Model Ys. Unconstrained ODD. When I say unconstrained, because you will have a safety driver. With a caveat being, I'm still sticking to my prediction where certain areas between SH-130 and the Austin Bergam Airport perhaps run some sort of testing with Cybercab there, but it's not ready for prime time yet. I'm sorry, Tesla fans, it's not ready for prime time yet.
I think your definition of prime time might be a little bit too of a high standard. Because again, you and I have both done recent test drives. I was just obviously in Arlington, safety driver there. I've been in Zoox. I've been in a lot of these things. With a safety driver there, like, it's going to feel pretty ready. We all, we're both using FSD on our own Teslas. Most of the time, you have no interactions at all from point to point. So, okay, that speed bump experience that you had would probably have been caught maybe in some way by the driver, depending on whether they're going to run these things in day and night. That'll be another interesting thing. So I don't know. I think you're there. I mean, I guess my question is for the quote unquote thought leaders, the YouTubers that are, the fans of Tesla and also very excited about June, planning their own parties in June. Is this going to be enough for them? Is there going to be positive spin on driver in? You're shrugging. So you're saying no, that they would actually criticize Elon and their company and saying, like, if it's what we predict, that it's not still the greatest thing ever?
There'll always be positive spin.
There you go. There you go.
No matter what happens, it'll be beautiful, it'll be huge. It'll be the best thing ever.
And the Elon haters, no matter what happens, are going to be on the opposite side of it. So we'll have those two sides. How do the markets, I guess? The markets are the ultimate kind of, you would think, rational decider on the view on this. So if it's driver in, limited service area, but the experience that you and I both have today in our Teslas, what's the market reaction if this thing goes live in June?
I want to say this for the record. FSD 13 is getting really, really good. It's not ready for full autonomous. I tested the speed bump to see if it could do it. It couldn't. The market reaction is going to be mixed. You're going to have your Tesla analyst bulls, rah, 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 here it is. And then you're going to have your, I don't like Elon, people say, nope, it's a failure. But to me, it's a really great learning opportunity for Tesla to learn to model the service, and it's a step forward. No matter what happens, driver in, it is a step forward to learn. And it's a really good step. Don't forget, a lot of these services have started with safety drivers. Waymo started with safety drivers. They're going to start with safety drivers. It's a natural progression. And it's a very healthy progression. I just hope Tesla does not jump off the deep end if the tech is truly not ready, as I think, because that will have negative ramifications, not just Tesla, but across the entire industry. We saw that with Cruise, and I do not want to see that again with Tesla.
You're kind of playing into the cliche concerns of Tesla out there. I mean, I don't know if it's fully deserved, so I think they will be safe. And you'll have a safety driver. And again, you use this, so you know what the performance is today. And I think the stock's going to rip because there's been so many promises not delivered that the fact that they're literally live in a market as a commercial service, even with a safety driver, I think that is going to create a catalyst for that stock. So we'll see. We will know soon enough.
I agree with the catalyst because it's a clear indicator to Wall Street that there's a path forward. That's it. Walt, we do this every week. I love it. I love it. I love it. And to the individuals that came up to us in Fort Worth and talked about our banter in the podcast, thank you. Matt McClellan, you got to meet Walt. That was fun, sir. That was fun. It was an honor to meet your son and wish him a lot of success at TCU. Walt, what do we need to look for in the autonomy markets over the coming week?
Grayson, next week I'll be in New York. So doing some, getting back to the grindstone here, but there's also an event here in New York. I'll have an opportunity to spend more time with May Mobility and some other infrastructure companies in that space. So maybe some new learnings off of that to talk about. And of course, Waymo is just going to continue to be probably a steady flow of information for us.
You're hitting the market in New York. I'm going to do all the follow-up from all the wonderful individuals that we met at Fort Worth and get the intel from them, and we'll discuss that next week. And you're right, perhaps we get something else from Waymo or another update from Tesla. But we do know the autonomy markets keep moving forward. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is autonomy markets road trips. Walt, until next week.